The mass of memory. The kill order arrived as a polite splash of amber text across my upper left visual field, obscuring the nav feed of the stars, smearing into blue lines ahead of us. No sirens, no flashing red lights, just a calm algorithmic demand to shed 0.4 grams of effective mass immediately. I stopped polishing the coolant manifold, my gripe cloth freezing rigid in my hand as I stared at the notification. We were running at 99.999% of light speed, surfing the razor's edge of the Higgs field instability, and apparently, that wasn't fast enough. The universe behind us was dissolving. A true vacuum bubble, indifferent and absolute, was eating reality at the speed of light, and we had to be faster. Query source. I sent over the local link. My internal vocalizer shut off to save power. The answer came back from the navigators instantly. Trajectory optimization required. Heat dissipation limits exceeded. Purge localized archive Sector 7G. Immediate. Sector 7G. That wasn't a fuel tank or a spare antimatter canister. That was the dormancy bank. I magnet-locked my boots to the deck plating and pivoted, the servos in my knees whining at the sudden torque. The corridor around me was efficient, ugly, and cold. Bundles of superconductors ran along the ceiling like exposed guts, pumping liquid helium to the servers that kept our collective consciousness from boiling off into the void. The air smelled of scrubbed ozone and dielectric fluid. It always smelled like that. I couldn't remember the smell of dirt or rain, and my memory bank said those files had been compressed into low-res summaries 3 centuries ago. I moved toward the aft section. To anyone looking at the gravimetric sensors, I was just a heavy, radiation-hardened composite shell, moving with purpose. Inside, my logic cores were redlining. The navigators were high-bandwidth minds, fused into the ship's mainframe. They saw the math of our survival. They didn't see the faces. They calculated that shedding the energy required to cool a cubic meter of memory storage would gain us a fraction of an angstrom of acceleration. Over 1 million years, that angstrom was the difference between existence and being erased by the white wall of nothingness chasing our tails. I reached the bulkhead of Sector 7G. The door slid open, revealing the rows of black monoliths. The silence here was different. It wasn't the silence of space, it was the silence of suspended animation. I walked to row 4, slot 12. The holographic tag floated in the air. Nadia, class, biologist. Status, dormant. Free fall 7. My internal sensors picked up a spike in my core temperature. The cooling fans in my chest spun up, vibrating against my chassis. I reached out, my carbon fiber fingers hovering over the manual release. Khalil, the system voice intoned, blending directly into my auditory cortex. Compliance delay detected. Explain. Running diagnostic on the deletion protocol. I lied. The lie tasted like static on my tongue. I looked at the black box. Nadia wasn't a body anymore. Her biological form had been discarded back in the solar era. She was a pattern, a complex architecture of personality and memory stored in a diamond lattice drive. She was waiting for a destination we hadn't found in 40,000 years. We had worked the intake manifolds together when we still had skin. I remembered the heat of the orbital refineries. I remembered her laughing at a terrible joke I made about a broken valve. That specific acoustic data, her laugh, took up 4 gigabytes of my own internal storage. The mass ratio is critical. The navigator's voice pressed, colder now. The wave is blue shifting. We are losing the margin. Spend. I knew the physics. The heat radiators trailing behind the ship were saturated. We couldn't dump the waste heat fast enough. Keeping Sector 7G cold required energy. Energy required mass. To go faster, something had to go. I pulled the hardline interface from my wrist and jammed it into the console below Nadia's slot. A stream of raw data flooded my vision, hexadecimal cascades representing her childhood, her research, the way she hummed when she was concentrating. I can optimize the compression, I signaled back, my transmission ragged. I can dump the history of the Saturn Wars. That's 3 terabytes. It equals the thermal load of her file. Historical data is essential for colony foundation. The navigator replied. Individual consciousness is redundant. We have sufficient genetic templates. Execute purge. Redundant. I looked at the blue lines of the stars on my HUD. They were fierce and bright, crushed by our velocity into hard X-rays. If I slowed down, even for a microsecond of hesitation, the relativistic time dilation would shift. Seconds for me would be years for the universe. The wave would catch up. My hand shook. Not from fear. Machines don't tremble from fear, but from a feedback loop in my haptic inhibitors fighting my motor commands. If I pulled the lever, the coolant flow to her block would cut. The heat of the ship's drive would bleed in. Her lattice would destabilize. She wouldn't die in pain. She would just corrupt. She would turn from a person into static, and then into silence. Khalil, the navigator said. Impact imminent. 3 seconds to event horizon intersection. I looked at the slot. If I saved her, I doomed the ship. If the ship died, she died anyway. It was the coldest equation in the galaxy. I didn't say goodbye. There was no bandwidth for sentiment. I gripped the manual override. My actuators locked. I routed every ounce of processing power I had into a single, sharp motion. I pulled the lever down. The hiss of depressurizing coolant was instant. The light on her slot turned from a soft, pulsing green to a flat, dead grey. The hum of the preservation field died. Immediately, the ship's impulse drive kicked harder. The vibration in the floor changed pitch, a subtle shift up the scale as we gained that desperate fraction of speed. The warning text in my vision cleared. Mass ratio optimized. Velocity increasing. I stood there for a long time, watching the grey light. The fans in my chest slowed down. My core temperature stabilized. I accessed my own memory directory. I found the file labeled Nadia, Laugh, WAV. It was a heavy file, inefficient. I selected it. I knew that in 1,000 years, when I needed to remember why we were running, I would reach for this file and find a hole. But we had to be light to fly. Confirm deletion? The system asked. I stared at the grey light on the wall. The vacuum behind us was hungry. Yes, I signaled. The file vanished. I turned around and walked back toward the engine room. There was a coolant leak in Sector 4 that needed fixing. This has been The Mass of Memory. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are listening or watching right now. And if you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to leave a review or drop a comment. It helps us reach more people just like you. Thank you for listening.